Today, we heard shocking allegations of ICE practices featuring testimony from multiple witnesses about the re-detention of Garrison William Gibson Brown. What unfolds is a portrait of constitutional violations, unsafe law enforcement practices, and shocking orders coming from the highest levels of the administration, including Stephen Miller. I went through the full hearing and pulled out the moments that actually matter, the ones that explain why this testimony has raised serious alarm. But before we dive in, please subscribe to this channel. It really helps support these long-form, evidence-based breakdowns and ensures you don't miss future hearings and investigations. Senator Richard Blumenthal sets the stage, grounding the discussion in constitutional principles that have guided America for centuries.
Our government and our courts have recognized the sanctity of people's homes. John Adams believed that Britain's warrantless entry into American homes, they're breaking down doors and forcibly entering people's houses, was the spark for the American Revolution 250 years ago.
A reminder, constitutional protections are not abstract. They're meant to protect every home from unlawful intrusion. Representative Robert Garcia then highlights the role of Stephen Miller and the impact of federal policies on communities across the country.
That we called out Stephen Miller. And in fact, we used this image of Stephen Miller to emphasize the terror that he was causing. And in fact, Jesse Waters and other Fox News podcasters and right-wing media personalities get upset every time that we call out Stephen Miller. Let's be very clear. This is one of the most dangerous men in the administration as it relates to violations of the Constitution. He is terrorizing communities. He is sending ICE out across this country, and he's willing to destroy the law and our Constitution so that he can move forward with his own bigoted worldview of how he views our country.
Garcia lays out the stakes. Policy decisions at the highest levels can put ordinary Americans in harm's way. Next, Teyana Gibson Brown recounts the terrifying home raid her family endured.
On this day, I was woken up to my husband, Garrison William Gibson Brown, at around 9:30 a.m., telling me that ICE was outside of our home, banging at the door. So he asked them if they had a warrant. The officers at the door told Garrison that they did have a warrant, and it was signed by a judge. When Garrison asked to see the warrant, the officer simply ignored his request. My husband repeatedly requested to see the warrant. The circumstances outside of our home only intensified. The officers started surrounding our property. Our neighbors and other protesters started gathering around, demanding that the officers leave. There was patent fear that filled our home. In no time, the scene only became more violent. Officers from the truck started shooting pepper spray at the protesters. Amid all of this, but 10 officers approached my front door. They looked like SWAT agents, holding each other's shoulders like a barricade. One of them grabbed a protester that was in the front of my yard from the front of his neck and the back of his head and slung him in the icy ground. The officers walked up to my door and started ramming the door. They hit the door 3 times until the door popped open. My stomach fell. I heard the door pop. The officers stood at the door and they were pointing their guns at us. 10 officers that were all armed were standing in front of me and my family. Both children were rushed in the room by my sister and were told to hide in the closet. The fear in my daughter's eyes is something you can't imagine.
The account shows what can happen when constitutional protections are ignored in practice, not just on paper. Former ICE attorney Ryan Schwank then explains how the agency's own training program is deficient and encourages unlawful conduct.
I swore an oath to uphold the Constitution when I joined ICE on August 1st, 2021, as an assistant chief counsel. I followed that oath for 4.5 years, working side by side with ICE officers. And I followed it when I resigned on February 13th, 2026, a little over a week ago, so that I could speak to you today. I am here because I am duty-bound to report the legally required training program at the ICE Academy is deficient, defective, and broken. 5 months ago, I was asked to teach the law to new cadets at the ICE Academy in Glencoe, Georgia, where ICE is training its new, inexperienced recruits. On my first day, I received secretive orders to teach new cadets to violate the Constitution by entering homes without a judicial warrant. For the last 5 months, I watched ICE dismantle the training program, cutting 240 hours of vital classes from a 584-hour program. Classes that teach the Constitution, our legal system, firearms training, the use of force, lawful arrests, proper detention, and the limits of officers' authority. For example, they ceased all of the legal instructions regarding use of force. This means that cadets are not taught what it means to be objectively reasonable, the very standard which the law requires them to meet when deciding whether or not to use deadly force. Our jobs as instructors are to teach them so well that they can make split-second decisions about what they can and cannot do in life or death situations. Yet, in the name of churning out an endless stream of officers, DHS leadership has dismantled the academic and practical tests that we need to know if cadets can safely and lawfully perform their job. All to satisfy an administration demanding they train thousands of new officers before the end of the year. DHS told the public that new cadets receive all the training they need to perform their duties, that no critical material or standards have been cut. This is a lie. ICE made the program shorter, and they removed so many essential parts that what remains is a dangerous husk. No reasonable person would believe a training program suddenly cut nearly in half could meet the minimum legal requirements. On my first day at the academy, I was instructed to read and return a memo in my supervisor's presence, which claimed ICE officers could enter homes without a judicial warrant. The acting ICE director authorized the very conduct that DHS, in its own 2025 legal training materials, had called the chief evil against which the wording of the Fourth Amendment is directed. That is, physical entry of the home without consent or a proper warrant. Never in my career had I ever received such a blatantly unlawful order, nor one conveyed in such a troubling manner. Incredibly, I was being shown this memo in secret by my supervisor, who made sure that I understood that disobedience could cost me my job. ICE is teaching cadets to violate the Constitution, and they were attempting to cloak it in secrecy by demanding that I lie about it. I am here to convey to the public the danger that is being created at the ICE Academy. I know from my conversations with many facility members, many of the faculty, that I am not alone in my fear. Law enforcement is a deadly serious business. It is not a place for shortcuts. Deficient training can and will get people killed. It can and will lead to unlawful arrests, violations of constitutional rights, and a fundamental loss of public trust in law enforcement. ICE is lying to Congress and the American people about the steps it is taking to ensure its 12,000 new officers faithfully uphold the Constitution and can perform their jobs.
Training the next generation to ignore the law puts lives and civil liberties at risk. Finally, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib follows up to clarify the aftermath of Gibson Brown's husband's detention.
After your husband was violently taken from your home, he was taken to the Whipple, Whipple Federal Building, is that correct? Did ICE agents take any photos of him while he was there?
He said they took trophy photos.
They were selfies on their personal cell phones with thumbs up.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
The day after your husband was illegally taken from your home, a federal judge ordered that he not be removed from Minnesota. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is that what happened?
He went to Texas. They took
He
him to
didn't know.
Texas.
They took him,
Yeah. they took
kidnapped him,
to
and took him to Texas.
Yes.
Did ICE quickly realize their error on their own?
No.
No. Your attorney had to confront Homeland Security. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
On January 15th, a federal judge that a federal judge found that ICE had violated your husband's rights by illegally breaking into your home and detaining him, and the judge ordered his release from the detention. Is that correct?
Yes.
But after your husband was released, he was re-detained for a few hours at the Ripple Federal Building. Is that correct?
Yes.
Who's responsible for ordering that your husband be re-detained?
They said it came from the White House.
Now, per federal agent, we know for a fact the order came from Stephen Miller. Did you know that?
Yes.
The testimony closes the loop. Top-level policy decisions trickle down to direct personal harm. From the sanctity of American homes to systemic flaws in training, this hearing exposes the human cost of policy decisions, constitutional rights, civil liberties, and community trust all on the line. If you found this breakdown useful, please like, subscribe, and share. More deep dives are coming.